right, we covered this story earlier in the week with our guest from the Quincy Institute, Trita Parsi, but now there are some new eyebrow-raising developments. Here's the headline. Saudis agree with U.S. on path to normalize kingdom's ties with Israel. That is the story. So what we discussed was that Saudi Arabia wants to, the United States wants Saudi Arabia to normalize ties with Israel. Israel would like that as well. Saudi Arabia had some demands. What we discussed with Trita Parsi was that Saudi Arabia wants security guarantees from the United States. They essentially want a NATO-like agreement where if they're attacked or if they've got something going on, they're going to draft this up. It wouldn't be them coming into NATO, but it would be something very similar to NATO where it's airtight. America comes to their defense, which is what many of us don't want to see. Many of us do not want to have to spend money, troops, military effort on defending Saudi Arabia. Well, they are now asking for some more things, and it looks like the White House is probably going to go along with it. The White House is asking for some concessions of their own, but they're kind of minor ultimately. So let's go ahead and go over this story a little bit. It says here from the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have agreed on the broad contours of a deal for Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel in exchange for concessions to the Palestinians. So this is a good thing. Saudi Arabia is saying, we're not going to go in and normalize relations with Israel just, after all of these years of not recognizing them, we're not going to go and now suddenly recognize them and go into this deal when all of these decades, the reason why we weren't recognizing them was because of their treatment of the Palestinians. So they're saying, if we're going to recognize them, we need to have some guarantees for the Palestinian people. So this is a positive thing for the Palestinians, but I could tell you they're probably very skeptical of this because every time somebody comes in and says, we're going to get something for the Palestinians, they get nothing, just meager little things, nothing really major. And so the concessions ideally that Saudi Arabia wants is some sort of carve out for a Palestinian state, that Israel would need to do this. Now, Israel's kind of done this, right? But then they go and they occupy the land anyway. So not really sure how beefy whatever it is they ask for is actually going to be. Other things they're asking for are U.S. security guarantees. They want those security guarantees to be airtight. They are wanting a NATO-like agreement, and it looks like the White House is potentially going to go along with that. And they also want nuclear help, with a civilian nuclear help, according to U.S. officials, it says in this article. U.S. officials expressed cautious optimism that in the next 9 to 12 months, they can hammer out the finer details of what would be the most momentous Middle East peace deal in a generation. So this is a huge deal. This is a story we have to pay attention to, something we have to watch. What will the Saudis ask for? And will the U.S. cave and say, okay, we'll give you security guarantees, like NATO-like agreement? Will Israel actually acquiesce and give something to the Palestinians in exchange? It would be amazing if it turns out that Saudi Arabia has gained enough power on the world stage to eventually, to potentially actually get something for the Palestinians that no other country has been able to really get for them. That would be pretty historic, but don't hold your breath on that one. They're also saying that this faces long odds, but they're hoping to hammer out this deal and get this going. They're saying that negotiators have now moved to discussing specifics, including addressing Saudi requests that the U.S. help them develop a civilian nuclear program and offer ironclad security guarantees. Who's ready to go to war for Saudi Arabia? The Saudis are also seeking significant concessions from Israel that would help promote the creation of a Palestinian state. In return, the U.S. is pressing Saudi Arabia to impose limits on its growing relationship with China. So this is what the U.S. wants. So Israel wants to normalize relations because Israel is not recognized by all of its neighbors, and they want to be able to live peacefully in the Middle East, which ultimately is good for us Americans because the more peace there is between Israel and these other countries, the less we have to constantly go and destabilize areas in the Middle East in order to keep them safe, because that's ultimately what's been a huge factor in our Middle East policy and going around and destabilizing all of these different nations, is to keep them from growing strong. Because when they're strong, then they actually threaten Israel. If we can keep them from getting nuclear weapons, for example, and if we could keep them destabilized and constantly fighting in their own little civil wars, like in Syria, then we could keep them from growing and actually being able to strong arm Israel or threaten Israel or get Israel to do what it needs to do, well, to do what is right by the Palestinian people who are living there. So it is beneficial if we see some real peace in the Middle East between Israel and these other countries. Israel is not going anywhere. It's going to be there to stay. It'd be nice, however, if there was some sort of two-state solution. That is my personal view. I do think there needs to be a two-state solution. I don't think there can be a one-state solution simply because I don't think it's fair to make the Palestinian people suddenly have to live in Israel under Israeli law with Israeli lawmakers. They want their own land. They want their own country. They have their own ideas of how to run that, and they should be given that right and that ability. Excuse me, I might sneeze. Allergy season. Okay, it might creep up. Sorry about that. Live. Here we are live. Now you know. So we're going to be watching this, but what's interesting is that the United States is just asking for Saudi Arabia to limit its relationship with China. Not sure how effective that's actually going to be. Saudi Arabia is looking at China, realizing that China is the next step in the world. I mean, China's growing at a rapid pace. They are going to become the new, probably, definitely at least equal to the United States they're rapidly getting right next to us when it comes to the power that they have on the world stage. And so Saudi Arabia, I don't think is going to be, well, can you trust them on this one, right? So the United States is saying, well, we want you to limit, and Saudi Arabia might say, okay, sure, we'll limit it a bit. But for how long does that last? Because as the United States loses power, does Saudi Arabia have to continue caring? Do they need to do that? When they ask for these security guarantees, these ironclad security guarantees, against who is a big question. Probably the Houthis in Yemen. And so that could actually reel the United States into a war and actually having to put troops on the ground in Yemen potentially if they go forward with a deal like this. So it's pretty significant, and it's definitely one that we're going to be watching. But it's just an interesting update to some of the things that they're asking for, some of the extra things that we didn't know about before. Now we're starting to learn more, and we'll see how this unfolds in the next coming months. All right, guys, let me tell you about Cozy Earth. These are my favorite sheets in the world, and I'm not lying to you. They really are incredible. They're not cheap. I'm not going to lie to you. They're not cheap, but you're going to get a great discount if you use the promo code that I'm going to give you here. But they really are worth it. You spend so much of your time sleeping. You want those sheets to be soft. You want them to be breathable. You want them to regulate your temperature. You don't want to be sleeping all hot and sweaty in the summer or all cold in the winter. And Cozy Earth really gives you this comfort when you're sleeping. They're absolutely fantastic. And if you don't agree, maybe you think, Cam, you're crazy. That's fine, whatever. But they will actually give you your money back, plus shipping, no questions asked. You have 100 nights to use these sheets to try them out. If you don't like them and you're like, oh, Cam's crazy and I just want to send these back, you can. But I'm telling you, you won't. They are my absolute, I can't sleep on other sheets now. I really can't. Everything else feels scratchy, but these feel soft and cooling and wonderful. Their bedding is made from viscose from bamboo, and it's like, I've had other sheets that are viscose from bamboo, but something about how they make theirs, they really are absolutely better. They trap less heat. They let you sleep cooler. You're going to be comfortable all year round. So get them for a limited time. You can save up to 40% on Cozy Earth. Go to CozyEarth.com, enter Iversen at checkout. That's the promo code. And you can save up to 40% off your sheets. So try them again, 100 nights. If you don't sleep cooler, send them back for a full refund. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code Iversen.